Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I changed my talk 3 times between the time that I got up, got in the shower, and then one more time in the car coming here. So now I have to wrap them all together because I can't figure out which one's the best one to choose. You know the best one?
The one you choose.
The one I choose. Okay. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about, you have to put a little bit of umph in your life to have a big ah. Did any of you as a child, I won't go into adulthood about this because none of us want to admit to it as adults, but did you ever fall down as a child, and when you fell down you kind of went oomph when you hit the...
Yeah.
Hello? Are you all here? We're just checking. And so in our lives there are some things that we do, and they aren't necessarily all physical mishaps. Sometimes there are experiences that we have when we're little children, sometimes as we're teenagers and into adulthood, and sometimes we look upon those things and we say, this was a mistake, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, and yet, really? And so, if you shouldn't have, why did you in the first place? Because something drew you to do that. And there's this wonderful quote on my desk, and this was going to be the second topic, was the backside of anything is not the worst of anything. And a lot of people don't understand that. We think there's only one choice for anything. There's multiple choices at any moment of our lives in anything that we do. So when I talked about the umph, and when I talk about the ah is when you have that new realization, that new thought, that new idea, that new relationship, that new job, something new. And something that happens in our thought process when we feel kind of stuck, or when we feel limited, or when we feel that we made a mistake, or we're in that fear because we think if we move this way or we do this thing, that suddenly it's going to produce something that is going to be terrible, or we're projecting on it that it will, and we don't even know that. So how do we move from all of that? And in today's society, there are fears at every turn. There are fears at every moment. And we're constantly hearing about them, and we're constantly seeing them, and we're constantly aware of some of the things that could happen to any of us at any time. I think of Advent Health, and I'm so sorry, I don't mean this to be a derogatory thing, a statement about them. They've been very helpful to me in my past. But what I am talking about is we're constantly bombarded with health pictures of who we ought to be or how we ought to feel, and I noticed on my way in that there was a big billboard with 2 oncologists talking about radiation therapy, and they looked smiley and lovely people. And I'm thinking, what are we thinking, and what are we seeing, and what are we feeling, and then how do we get to the ah of it all? So, then, my third, was the fact that when we were standing out there and I was waiting to come in, is the fact that I looked out on the grass, and you haven't been doing your job, have you?
No, ma'am. I need to be fired.
And I am so teasing you. This man has done so much for this church. But I looked out there and I thought, you couldn't even keep track of the grass because it's going to grow, just by looking at it and the weather we've been having. But I was reminded of the musical You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And I don't know if there's anybody in this audience that saw it. But Lucy, and I believe it's Charlie Brown, if it's not, it's Linus, but I'm pretty sure it's Charlie Brown, have an argument about which way the grass grows. And Lucy comes back and says, it grows up, Charlie Brown, it grows up. And he says, no, it grows down, it grows down. Is there a right or wrong here? No. So, moving over, we did a principle. We talked about natural law. We talked about your happiness or unhappiness and how you live your life. And the beautiful thing about it is the fact that all of your choices, there's always going to be more than one. There's always going to be more than one choice. There's always going to be an oomph, but there's going to be a whole bunch of potentials and possibilities between the oomph and the ah. And all you have to do is take pace with yourself and be in control of you enough so that your choices are based upon what you feel and what is truly in what I call your heart of hearts. Because a lot of times people make choices based upon shoulds. A lot of times we're making choices on what we're told that we have to do. If it's a particular task for a job, that's one thing. If it's a particular thing that you've made an agreement about doing, that's another. But if it's something that you're facing you are doing, and something that you're looking at, the beautiful thing is that oomph that you might feel, if it doesn't turn out and look quite right, it may result in a great ah down the line. You won't know until you actually get down the line. And it is what it is this wonderful statement that a lot of people make. And when they make it, sometimes people say it is what it is, as though that's a finality, and that they can't do anything else. And I'm here to say, it is what it is as a starting point. It's not an ending, it's not a final kind of commitment or sentence that you're receiving. And when you have an understanding of it is what it is, and when you're looking at the isness of all of it, you're looking at that infinite intelligence, you're looking in that moment at that opportunity of the creativity of you. The isness of you, the infinite of you, is everything and one thing more. It's that next thought, it's that next feeling, it's that next glimmer, it's that next understanding, it's that next person you talk to, it's that next breath that you take. And you're constantly doing this throughout your life, constantly. And you're tapping this in, and you're weaving it in. And it's creating all these wonderful moments because the soul of you wants to create. And it wants to create joyfully. And it will create in whatever direction you're looking, not with your physical eyes, but your inner vision. And it doesn't need a great epiphany, and it doesn't need a Lucy talking to you about which way your grass grows. But it might give you a new idea when you do talk to a neighbor about something that you're working on in your yard. If you want to come and look at my yard, it's indigenous, whatever. But the beautiful thing is that the oomph of you will always be there. That part of you that has perhaps not succeeded in certain ways that you wanted. And yet, where did it take you? And how did it move you forward? And what choices did you make once you had made that choice and you moved away from that oomph? You moved other choices. Part of us will constantly keep going because that's the nature of who we are. Constantly, you're going to be aware of wanting to create. And when you feel stuck, when you feel limited, when you feel that you can't achieve or do something, sometimes that's because the soul of us has two emotions, and those two are joy and boredom. You can even be bored with grief. You can be bored with anger, because you can roll it around and roll it around and roll it around within you long enough where it becomes like old juicy fruit gum, chewing it. Have you ever done that? Old juicy fruit gum, when you chew it long enough, it tastes like dead wax, sort of, depending upon your taste buds. And the incredible thing about the juicy fruit gum is the fact is when you put it in your mouth at first, it's succulent and sweet and enjoyable. And everything in our life can be that way, and then it can change. It does not mean change is a punishment. It does not mean change is bad. It means the fact that change happens because it can. So change occurs on a job, change occurs in a relationship, change occurs, I notice my body changing. This one is not kind, but I recognize it's not a punishment, it's my overactive mouth. However, at this stage in my life, I also understand that my metabolism doesn't work quite the same way it did when I was wearing a younger woman's clothes. So it's about the fact of, as life progresses for any of us, how do we adapt, how do we move through it, and how do we flow? How do we flow? So there are the umphs and there are the ahs. And which end are you at in anything in your life? I also think some of my umphs have been in baking. Every so often I have baked something that was a true disaster. I know none of you have done that. But also when I cooked, you know, sometimes I would throw a pot on the stove and I would just throw stuff in it. And then the pot wasn't big enough for all the stuff I was throwing in it. So I got out the roasting pan and I just kept putting stuff in it, frozen vegetables. And you never did anything like this? It was a creative experience. And I ended up with this concoction that no one wanted to eat. What you do. And I'm telling you trivial situations. All of us have spoken the wrong words at a moment. All of us have expressed ourselves maybe inappropriately when we least wanted to do that and gone, oh, and that's an oomph, isn't it? And then all of us have said some beautiful and brilliant and touching things, perhaps at just the moment that it was accepted in another person's heart and mind. None of you have made mistakes. A lot of people like to think, if I hadn't made this mistake, I would be doing this. And I say to you, no. You can't change the scars that life leaves on you, but you can change their meaning. And how you change their meaning is that you start to discover one other way to view. And it might be a minor thing, and it might be a little thing, but it takes a transition of thought. And all of us in this room have that ability, because everybody in this room has something called intuition. Your intuition is something that has taken you places. Your intuition helps you turn right instead of left when you don't have a map and you're not using your GPS or navigational system. So what happens, though, when you're out and about and there's a big question that comes up about something and you make a choice on the spot? How do you do that? Huh? There's this wonderful essence of all that you are, and it ties in to me with that infinite that is already in you and around and in through all life. That infinite and that inspiration and that guidance and that sense of direction isn't coming, in my opinion, from out there. It's already in here. It's just the fact that we're not paying attention to it when we're viewing life through fear, when we're viewing life through I can'ts, when we're viewing life and saying it's not going to happen to me. I'll tell you a really good way to watch and see somebody who's got some real good I can't going is how many people buy a lottery ticket, and the minute that they're buying it, they'll say, I never win. It is what it is a wonderful starting point, and it's a jumping off point, so that the umphs in your life, whether they are there or not, they don't matter, because you see them as the stepping stones that they are to those ahs, those moments that you go, wow, this is wonderful. The starting point of it is when you recognize the is of it, and you're focused about it, and you're aware that you are, it has the next breath and the next opportunity and the next experience that will come. And all you have to do is either listen or act on it in your own way. Some people like to doodle. Some people like to walk. Some people like to sit with their eyes closed. There's all manner of types of meditation. But one thing I will tell you is, hope is action. It is not sitting for 2 hours in solitude. It is getting up and moving the energy of you. It doesn't take away from a 2-hour meditation, but I don't do them. I get up and I move. Because the minute you start moving that oxygen, you're moving the flow of life through your body. And the minute that you're moving that flow of life through your body, those energies that are you, that are commingling with the universe and all of the energies all throughout it. And that includes every inspirational whatever that you can consider. Whether you're going to think that it's your spirit guides, whether you're thinking that some people think it's an angel. I just think of it as the universe. The universe, because the universe wants to help. And the universe does not punish. And God does not punish. So I don't use the term God a lot anymore because to me it is a narrow word for many. Not necessarily all of you and not necessarily all of us as spiritualists. But I call it the isness because it is everything. And remember I said it's everything and it's one thing more and it's that one next breath, and that one next breath could be very healing. That one next breath could be a new idea. That one next breath could be that awe after maybe there's been something that turned out to be an umph. And you won't know if it grows up or grows down. But what you will know is that you have the inspiration and you have the feeling to do it. A lot of people turn to us, Jeannie, myself, Pauline, and any of the others here who are mediums. They will turn to us and they will look for direction, inspiration, guidance, thoughts regarding all manner of subjects, from relationships and marriages to babies, to births, to deaths, to all manner. But one thing that all of you have is the inspiration within you that goes beyond what anybody has to tell you. And this is when I teach, I just encourage, and when I counsel, and I've been a reader for 43 years, is that I always say, if your intuition, you wake up in the morning and you have an inspiration to do something, take a small step toward it. Regardless of what any of us say, regardless of what anything you've read, if it feels a little step, and with that little step, you're going to notice that you feel inside that either ripple that doesn't feel quite right, or you feel that and you take the next step. And that next step leads to your genius. And you never know what your genius might bring. The back of anything is not the worst of anything. The back of anything can be when you least expect that out of something that was your oomph, it really did turn into an awe without your help. And that's where the universe wants to help you. We live in a time that is not easy. We live in a world, and especially our communities here in Florida, that are constantly changing. And if you need a little proof of that, just drive I-4. I think those lanes change every time I come in here. And I'm so grateful to Pauline to drive me this morning so that I didn't have to try to arrive here totally composed. But our world is changing, so how do we flow with that rather than resist it? The way is to allow yourself to know that through every time that you go through challenge and every time that you question that oomph that might be there, be gentle with yourself, recognizing, and start to look for the I'll bet you it's there. Thank you.